Right, let's do a review of this then. It's a 2007 CDA CI830 washer dryer, manufactured by Fagor. So to get hold of a Fagor machine that isn't broken is quite hard, and sure enough I've managed to get hold of a Fagor machine that's not broken. It is actually fully working since the day I got it. Cleaned it up, but that's about it. That's all I've had to do, just clean it up a bit, empty the filter, stuff like that. Right, Fagor give you basically turbo time on basically all their models. Effectively, think of it like Bosch and their express wash system. So if you're washing lightly to normal soil laundry, you just turn it on and put it on. But if you're washing normal to heavily soil laundry, you'll want to push the intensive wash option instead. And it does exactly the same like the Bosch, where, you know, on a normal wash cycle, it will heat to temperature, then will wash for a time period. And then just like the Bosch, pushing intensive wash will lengthen the wash cycle, but will stick to that length of the wash cycle regardless, with pretty much very similar length of cycles as well. Right, it's a 1100 spin, class A for a wash and energy. As you can see, it's quite yellowed actually, but I'm wondering, because of the shade of the white that they used, that it still would have been more yellow than the white of the Inset anyway, or the Beko from the factory, but it's just gone more yellow since. But weirdly, it's sort of yellowed equally all over, apart from the bottom kick plates, which is a little bit more obvious. But there you go. Anyway, behind the kick plates is the drain filter. So if it does clog up, you can empty it. Right, we have a total of 15 programs written on our dial here. So on this model, the quick wash is directly next to the on off position. However, on some other models, the quick wash could be after the cold wash cycle. Right, so turn it on there. Program 1, quick 30 minutes at 30 degrees, full length spin. You can wash 1.5 kilograms, according to the instruction manual, of lightly soiled cottons in a short amount of time. It will do 1100 spin, but it is much shorter. What more do you want? You can also select dry, and you can dry it all after. Program 2 is cotton at cold. It's now long. You can also have program 3, which is cotton 30, 40, 60, 90, and with a pre-wash at 60 degrees. So the pre-wash will be carried out up to 30 degrees, followed by the main wash at 60. Max load is 6 kilograms. However, if you're drying cottons, max load is 3 kilograms, half load on this. Max spin speed is 1100 RPM. I'll just go through the options as well. So intensive wash option, which can be basically selected with all these temperatures. It will add on 25 minutes on the cotton 60 with pre-wash, but if you select 60, 40 or 30, watch how long it goes on. Ready? Now 31 to 2 hours 13. It adds on specifically 42 minutes. And that's because by enabling intensive wash on the 60, 40 and 30, you're basically doing the standard economy cycles for this machine to achieve its A wash performance and energy rating. If you select intensive wash on 90, pre-wash at 60 and cold, it will add on a period of time instead. But essentially, intensive wash, if it says 2 hours 13 and you only put half a load in, it will still wash for 2 hours 13. What it gets odd is if you select normal 1 hour 31 cotton 60 and you put half a load in, you might lose 10 minutes with the half a load and it'll be over and done with in an hour 20. That's what intensive wash does. Then we've got easy iron, adds on 10 minutes. It's more obvious with the spin cycle down here. What it does, it will extend the final spin from a 10-minute spin to a 20-minute spin with basically intermediate tumbling in between spins on the final spin. That will reduce the creasing and also reduce the clothes from clinging to the drum. So my advice is, if you're washing and drying all in one go, automatically drying in one go, select easy iron along with drying, and that way it will stop it from hopefully clinging to the drum too much. Extra rinse, according to the manual, will increase the final rinse by 8 minutes. Seems like a long time. To me, it just looks like it adds on an additional rinse instead. Right, then we've got variable spin. 1000, 800, 600, 400 RPM, 200 RPM, 100 RPM, which is basically distribution by this point. No spin, which does exactly what it says on the tin. So this will cancel all the intermediate spins and the final spin, and the final spin will end with a drain only. Then you've got anti-crease, which will keep all the intermediate spins and will end with a rinse hold instead. What's a bit odd and weird is that easy iron can't be selected with anti-crease or no spin. Now I can understand with no spin, that makes sense. But anti-crease, I'm not so sure, because the thing is, despite it being an hour 31 exactly the same time, when it gets anti-crease, because it's rinse hold, it will still have 10 minutes left on the timer. Why can easy iron not be selected with it? Anyway, that's a bit bizarre. Right, we've also got drying time over here. So if you want to automatically wash and dry, you can select it with any of these cycles. But if you want to dry only, you have to turn the dial to normal drying up here on program 15. And they can dry only stuff afterwards instead. So let's say you want to do a normal wash. What you do, you put your washing in, set it to the temperature you want, then select the options that you want, and then press start. And it will just do the wash with up to a max load if you want. If you want to do a wash and dry, what you do is you put in half a load of laundry, or less than half a load, shall I say, whatever. Select the cycle you want, select the options you want, etc. And then hit the drying time before you hit start. So with drying time, if we press it, on the first press you'll get 20 minutes. Every single tap will add on 1 minute. But if you want to obviously have, say, like 100 minutes, this will take ages, right? Well, you can press and hold drying time, and then it will start adding on 10 minutes sections like this. So now we've got 100 minutes, an hour 40. Max drying time is up to 3 hours. Truth be told, it doesn't actually state in the manual anywhere how long the machine needs to be on for a certain load size. I have tried it with a half load of towels, put it on for over 2 hours, and they weren't quite dry. They could have done with, like I say, another half an hour. So the dryer does seem perhaps on the slow side, because effectively the hot point and indicators of the time, more hot point than anything, with their 2 kilowatt drying heater would have done a 5 kilogram load in 3 hours. In fact, they would have done a 3 kilogram load in just an hour and a half. That's how quick it was. About an hour 40. Yeah, an hour 40. This is wanting 2.5 hours. It's pretty slow. But it works, and it works fine. So what more do you want? Right. And we've got rinse and spin. Not used it yet. It doesn't really state in the manual whether it's just 1 rinse or 2. You can have extra rinse function. Anyway. So it'll do a normal cottons rinse. 2 rinses with fabric softener. Followed by the full length cotton spin. Right, now we've got spin only. So with this, if you select a spin speed, it will do a full length cotton spin. You can select easy iron and do an easy iron spin if you want. If you select no spin, it's still apparently only 10 minutes. Right, there's no drain only apparently then, according to this. Or at least not without draining for 10 minutes. Right. I suspect once you've actually selected 0 and you select start, it should probably just do drain only. But who knows? You got wool at 35 degrees. Couldn't tell you how fast it spins or anything because it didn't spin when I tested it. I put the jumper in and it failed to bounce the jumper. Then it showed up an error code. Oh well. But the error code is to do with an unbalance. It was a bit odd though because it come up with like, say, I think it was like C11 or something like that. Why couldn't it just come up with UBL instead? Unbalanced load. To make it easier. Right. The wool cycle, 1 kilogram. You can have easy iron, weirdly, and you can have extra rinse. Of course, you can't have drying time. We've got delicate. Now, this is not delicate in a traditional sense. This is delicate in a easy care synthetics sense. So, max load, half a load, 3 kilogram. Right. Drying load, don't know. It's not actually stated in the manual despite having a manual for both the washing machine and the washer dryer. Yep, it does not tell you. So 3 kilogram for delicate. I presume because of how long this drying normally takes that the max load for the easy care will then be reduced to 2 kilogram if you're drying that, even though you can still have up to 3 hours of drying. Oh well. Right, again, we've got intensive wash, easy iron option, and extra rinse. You can put it on no spin if you want, or we can have anti-crease / rinse hold, whatever you want to call it. Right. Interestingly, again, intensive wash. If I select 30 or cold, they're both 50 minutes. However, if I select intensive wash, it's up to 1 hour 15 again. Same principle as the Bosch, you know. So this one heats up the temperature, washes for time period, couple of rinses, spin, whatever. Intensive wash will have a fixed rate length wash stage. So in other words, once it's up to temperature, if it say heats up to 30 and then washes for 40 minutes, or heats up to 40 in 15 minutes, it will wash for 35 minutes, if that makes sense. Delicate's drying on program 14. If you want to dry only, if you want to do wash only, obviously just set it up as normal without heating drying. If you want drying only for delicates, select program 14. So effectively you should do it at a lower temperature and can go up to again 3 hours. And of course we've got our start pause button to start any cycle. Right. Open door. Door handle is here, behind the door. Nice and positive. Normally here, there's also a heat shield. I've taken it off for filming purposes, but genuinely, you need it on. Ratings plate. Our Fagor drum. All these drum pedals are loose, though I believe this is just very typical anyway. Weirdly, this door seal looks a little twisted. It looks fine, it looks like it's also in the right place, but just looks twisted. The dryer is a bit odd, because it seems to just shoot down and it doesn't get, you know, directed in to the drum. So all I can think of that what it's actually doing is heating the door glass, the air, to be pushed in by the door glass. It's probably the reason why it's such a poor dryer. It's got a distinct dryer smell in this machine. Right. Now, turn drawer, it's split into 3 compartments. We've got our pre-wash compartment if we select cotton 60 with the pre-wash. We've got our main wash compartment, and of course that means if you are selecting cotton 60 with pre-wash, you need to fill both sides. But because we're not doing cotton 60 with pre-wash this time around, we're just going to put the detergent in the middle compartment. That's 50ml of balls, so that shows you how big the dispenser is. So I reckon we can put around 400 to 500ml in the main wash. We could probably easily get 250 in the pre-wash. Our fabric softener is here. There's a max mark here that we don't want to fill beyond. So I'm pretty sure we won't fill beyond that. I suspect that the max fill line for the softener is 150, maybe even 200 millilitres of fabric softener. Doesn't really surprise me. This is from Spain, and Spanish do tend to have quite large volumes of detergent. They're not concentrated like ours. Yeah, should be enough. 90 minutes. So another thing as well, just forgot to mention, we have a wash light that will remain lit during the entire wash, rinses and spin state of the wash. If it's selected drying, the drying light will come on once it's in drying mode. We've got the stop light here. It flashes to say it's ready to start a cycle. Right. Once we hit start, the wash lights will remain solid. Well, I managed to drive everything perfectly. It'd be interesting to see if it shrank anything. Especially with something like this. Don't get me wrong, believe it or not, these are really crease free. But that also being said, that's a bit unfair because of course how much I put in. Typically speaking, you can do the same with a normal tumble dryer. Just put less in and it will come out less creased. Do you know what? I don't normally do this. I normally take stuff out, put it into a basket, leave it for 7 days before I fold it up and put it away. But this time around, definitely taking everything out and making sure they're folded up. Not like me. Right, so what to give this out of 10 then? Well, despite them coming out crease free, the 1.2 kilowatt heater, yeah, 1.2 kilowatt drying heater in the dryer section makes this take ages. Don't get me wrong, an 1800 watt wash heater is fine. It's fast enough. It's up there with pretty much everything else on the market in 2007. But yeah, that dryer take way too long. Right, so the dryer is poor. We're comparing this to be fair, the price at the time was something like 400 quid, so I think it was like 399, something around that. CDA is an exclusive manufacturer in this country. It's really weird how they work here. So it's a manufacturer, it's a seller in this country that imports the washing machines or whatever, then sticks the CDA logo on and resells them. Yeah, and they're still in business today. You know, you can go on their site and buy CDA freestanding washing machines, integrated washing machines, integrated dryers, etc. All from different manufacturers, usually from Vestal, Hoover, Candy, a lot. It meant that Fagor had a foot in our market since Fagor was barely sold here. I think Fagor was usually only exclusives. So believe it or not, Capel and CDA, which were both Fagor made at the time 20 years ago, they had more of them than Fagor bad stuff itself. And that's been for the entire run that they were over here. Even today, I mean, even looking, say, you know, at my Siltile CDA, again, that was a way for Siltile to get into our country, but they never ever sold under Siltile. Right. Drying. Takes too long, because we're comparing this to, effectively, Hotpoint WD 420, Insert WIDL 146, Hoover Nextra washer dryers. So that's what it's up against, simply because it's on that price range, that price bar. It's on the lower spectrum, but all of them brands give you more programs. They give you actual programs, usually with a temperature dial. Yeah, even the Hotpoint did, yeah. So you could set it to cartons, whatever, synthetics, and reduce the temperature. More so with the Hoover, actually, at the time. Giving you also, like the Hoover, gave you a daily wash at 29 minutes, and 44 minutes, and 59 minutes. All on the same machine. The Hotpoint gave you Fast Wash 60 and Fast Wash 30, and the Indesit gave you daily 30, but also usually, you know, a stain option, stuff like that. This, performance-wise, this is where it also falls down as a washing machine. Washing performance is poor. spin performance is poor. But then as it turns out, even more bizarrely poor than it should be. You see, the problem with this machine is it's actually quite well built. If you compare this to an Insit, or a Hotpoint, or a Hoover, everything's just better built on it. Made to last kind of thing. Which is fine. But it's horrid. Unfortunately, it takes way too long to try to balance anything. It's trying to be so perfect, it's unreal. Like, it has to be perfectly balanced before it will spin. So, on the intermediate spins, it will time out. And it'll time out after, say, 7-8 minutes, something like that. Not for very long. On the final spin, it will happily try to balance the load for 15 or even 20 minutes. 25 minutes, actually. I think the wool took half an hour before it aborted the final spin, trying to balance the jumper that was in it at the time. But even on a normal cotton cycle, with just old towels, let's say, that's fully loaded, it was still struggling to balance the load and even would limit the final spin. That's annoying. And it gave poor rinse results in the end because of it. You know, it's very odd and very weird how this works. On the wash, you put it on, you start it up, and it will start tumbling with the washing. But on the rinsers, it does a timed static fill. What's that about? I can understand maybe having a timed fill, fine. But why static? I can't understand it. You don't design the wash at the start to be very good. You know, it starts filling and tumbling one way constantly to quickly soak the clothes with water. But then to just do a static fill on the rinsers, what's that about? So realistically, you would be probably pushing intensive wash quite a lot if you were really using this. You would probably want a 2-hour wash a lot for some reason on this. Rinsing is fine so long as it spins during intermediate spins, because if it doesn't, which it does a lot, it gives poor rinsers. The easy option though on this is the one thing I do like, and it does work. Weirdly and strangely. So other than that, there's not really that much going for this machine. Yeah. Then there's reliability. I'm quite surprised it's still here. Every single Fagor suffered from 2 problems. The first one, alright, an occasional third problem. The third problem, occasional, was the brushes wore out. No biggie, you just change them over, whatever. That's normal, isn't it? The second one was this door handle. It's made of plastic. Even with this, it often broke. The latest wasp broke even more. But the worst thing is the drum. The drum spider rots like, well, nothing I've ever seen before. So sure enough, you will be very hard pressed to find a working Fagor because all the drums have snapped. And yes, it's a splittable tub, don't get me wrong. But the old CDA I had years ago, that integrated thing, I looked online, you could get hold of a door handle, that was fine. It's about 10 quid at the time. But you could also get hold of a drum spider, and it was £140. And then not long after that, it was then just obsolete anyway. So, yeah. And I'm not going to change the drum spider on something that's absolutely worthless. Would I change the drum spider on this if this snapped? Not really, no. I think if it ever snapped, I would just bin it, just like every other Fagor. Also, and I noticed it during drying, it's rather bizarre, but there's moisture getting into this control panel here. I'm not really that surprised. Again, build quality. So the door seal obviously goes around the dry duct, except there's a gap. It's not very tight. Like, come on. Like, it's round it, it's just not tight. The door seal isn't coming down, weirdly, but there's still a gap. It's really, really, not like a hole, just a plain gap. Really bizarre. And that's why I'm going to give this a meager 4 out of 10. Okay, I'm going to give it a... No, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. Personally, I think if I was given this, even if I was given it, I'd soon be getting rid of it, if I was ever given it. And I was given it. I got this for free, luckily. I mean, for YouTube purposes, this is great. And that's about it. The only one thing, it is quite sort of entertaining to watch. It's got a bit of character to it, but it's just not very good as a machine. Not very good as a washer. 3 or 4 out of 10. Never mind, eh? Right, I hope you enjoyed this review. Give us a like if you enjoyed the review. Give us a comment down below as well. Just tell me what you enjoyed about this. Whether you actually like the machine yourself. Like I say, it's sort of entertaining to watch. It does do spin washers, which is really bizarre. But other than that, it's not brilliant. And subscribe to the channel for more washing machine content if you haven't done so already. Also hit the bell if you've never hit that. To be fair, I've never hit the bell. I've never really understood about hitting the bell because it will notify you when there's a new upload. But I obviously keep to or try to, as much as possible, to a regular timetable. So I've never understood the idea of hitting the bell, especially as you will often log on to your homepage, and if you hit the bell for everybody, you're going to have everybody's notifications and have everybody's latest uploads in your home feed. Never understood that. But you can hit the bell then, or not. Right, see you lot in another video, so bye for now.